It's time for the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan. Blake Sloan, one of the top real estate agents not only on the Grand Strand, but in the world. He's been featured in Forbes magazine, the Wall Street Journal, NBC, and many other publications. And now, the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan.
Welcome to Blake Sloan Real Estate Show. Exciting brand new show. All kind of stuff going on right now. Big news in the real estate world this week. Had another record this week in terms of interest rates, but that was in a good way. We actually had a record one-day drop in terms of interest rates. So it's very, very, very good news for anybody in this real estate world, any homeowners out there. It dropped significantly this past week, which is going to get a lot of buyers back off the fence. Because there's a lot of pain. We were getting into the mid sevens and back into the sixes, really mid sixes. So great news there. We'll talk about that. What's going on? Huge news there. So that's great stuff. Where we had so many buyers that were on the actual fence and we're trying to get qualified or just waiting for rates to come back down. And so we're seeing great news on that front. We'll talk about that. We'll also recap the brand new market numbers, and they're very, very interesting. For anybody that missed last week's show, 30% drop in sales, 40+% drop in new pending deals. And so we'll see that pain probably happen this month. And so that's just something we'll keep watching, and hopefully we'll see that bump back up here a little bit. But the good news is we had last week, we talked about was prices were actually up last month, which is not what anybody really expected, but it was really prices held tight because of low inventory. Inventory is still at a record low. If you look at long-term, still not even to pre-COVID type inventory right now. And so that's what's helping prices hold steady, even with much higher interest rates. We'll talk about that as they did bounce up. Some major horror stories I want to talk about that just happened this week that are in the business, specifically with these local professional home buyers. It's absolutely mind-blowing the things they are doing to people. I talked about this same exact one a few weeks ago, where, and I don't really like doing this, but I just feel so bad for the people where they just absolutely get obliterated one side with contracts with, they had this lady not even have her own representation from a closing attorney. And they didn't close by the end of the day. And same thing happened last time. Same investor, lady had cancer and got to the day of closing and tried to get her to drop her price another $50,000 or they wouldn't close. And so we'll talk about just what to watch out for right now, because I think it's super important to protect yourself and your largest asset, where people all the time try to save a nickel, but it costs them $10. And we see this happen over and over and over. So on the flip side of that, though, we'll also talk about some amazing success stories. Our team's absolutely crushing it. 23 deals in the past 2 weeks we've averaged, while a lot of agents are packing up shop and getting out. We've been doubling down, have not reduced any advertising for buyers out there coming across the country. So we'll talk about that. Also, something I had on the show last week I just didn't have time to get to, but it's really important, where it's some good news, and it's 3 reasons and 3 separate graphs on why this is not 2008, which is super important. We'll talk about what makes it different. One of those, which is inventory. The other one is home equity. So many people have so much equity right now. I get all these novice sayings calling all the time, like, hey, I know the foreclosures are coming. Well, the problem is people have way more equity than did last time, where the average homeowner has hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity, and they can sell it really quickly if they need to, if they're in a pinch. And so there's not this giant wave of foreclosures like going on out there. And so we'll talk about what makes it different this time. And so one thing too, if we have time, South Carolina, Forbes listed the top cities in South Carolina where to live. Myrtle Beach came in at number 2. We'll talk about how we stacked up here. Just overall great stuff for today's show.
You heard the personal endorsements here by Sean Kennedy, also partner Corcoran, Gary LeVance. Put them all together, it's just totally unprecedented. Now that's one thing, but the other thing is that Blake has trademark systems for both home sellers and home buyers. They are trademarked, so we can't give you all the details, but more than happy every week to tell you the most important part of that system.
Yes, and that's the whole reason why we do this show. And again, back to that horror story. Why, being in this business, I grew up in the business. Mom, dad, aunt, uncle, grandpa, grandma, entire family sold real estate, and so I grew up in this business, and I always want to be really good at it. I was very dedicated. Watch people that would get like the Seals Awards when I was a kid in my mom's office, and man, I want to do this and be really good at it. And as you've been in it, been there for 20 years now, you start to see there's all these ups and downs, and there's a lot of people that just don't really know what they're doing, and it costs these people lots of money for their hard-earned equity. And there's so many different mistakes that consumers make is really the main reason to the show. There's a lot of time and energy goes into it, but I see these same mistakes over and over and over and over again. And that one horror story earlier actually cost the lady $120,000 extra. And it was someone who was actually going to list property to us that somehow just disappeared, kind of went dark on us. And then before we get photos, and then all of a sudden this investor came in, hoodooed them, and got them to reduce their price $120,000, and then didn't even actually close on the property. And so there's all these things out there. You got to be careful. And so it's the same mistake as he made over and over, is they make the mistake of thinking that all real estate agents are the same. And it could not be further from the truth, right? Just like any doctor, any lawyer, if I'm charged with a crime I did not commit, right? The last thing I want some part-time attorney who's only tried a few cases. But for some reason, people list their house with someone who's just a friend of a friend that's been in the business a little while, and they sell 3 or 4 houses a year, and they can't figure out why it goes horribly. And so it's the same exact thing. You should demand that same level of excellence with your largest asset. And the reality is the average agent in our marketplace sells roughly 4 homes a year. There's not a whole lot of experience there in getting the job done. There's not a whole lot of money there to actually spend on your behalf to get the marketing done. And so that's what most people don't realize. They make this massive mistake of looking at agents like they're a commodity when they're not. They're just like any other type of service that you have between the doctor and lawyer, where you're having someone who's what we call a knowledge worker, who, depending on what type of knowledge you have and how good they are, is going to determine your outcome. What most people don't realize is that the selling your property is 118 different variables from A to Z. If each one's handled correctly, it puts money in your pocket, property gets sold. If anything's handled incorrectly, aka they drop the ball at any time, that costs you tens of thousands of dollars, aka your hard-earned equity. Or what's happening a lot more now, and this wasn't the case when it was a frenzy, is that the property doesn't sell. What would happen a few months ago is that the property sell, but you didn't know that you just cost yourself $40,000. I would literally see that example every single week when the market was hot. This home seller's happy. They think they did great. Listed to the house. Their friend used some cell phone photos. They got it sold, but they didn't realize when you look at the comps, they sold it for $40,000 less than they could have got. And so these are the things we see over and over and over. And so I do this show to share one thing. That single most important variable that determines your failure or success as a home seller and also a home buyer comes down to one thing and one thing only: the agent that you choose, period, because it has to do with how they actually execute. And like I mentioned, there's 118 different variables. If anything's handled incorrectly, that's going to cost you your hard-earned money. That's anything from the quality of the photos. Number one is obviously price strategy. But what type of photos you use, the quality photos. There's also an actual order of the photos that make a difference, because most people don't realize your first showing happens online. And so buyer search by elimination, what they don't realize is pictures 2, 3, and 4 have to sell the buyer looking at your property even more. And so you have to get them to look at the rest of the photos before they can actually click the button for a showing. But if I sell 4 homes a year, guess what? I don't know that. And so there's so many nuances and things that matter. And so I started out and said, look, there's got to be a better way. What most agents do is they just put it into MLS and let it ride. I mention this all the time, the 3 Ps. They promise you the world to get the listing. Number 2, they put it into MLS. And 3, they pray that someone else brings the buyer. Meanwhile, they're down the street at your neighbor's house trying to get their listing because they're just trying to survive in the business. And so that's what you see happen over and over and over. And I said, there's got to be a better way for that. And I sought out, I hired coaches and consultants from all across different industries. And one of the best ones I had was actually someone who was in grocery stores. And they took them from 40 to 4,000 and sold them. And so we sought out to say, how do I look at how businesses operate outside of real estate and bring that same predictability into real estate? We really went out and we outlined what has to happen every single time in the right order to get a house sold. And that's how we know there's 118 of those. And said, how do we back that up with systems and people to make sure they get handled the right way every single time? And that's exactly what we did. We created software that manages variables. We created a team of people to make sure we can manage all those variables, all 118, because when you have one single agent trying to juggle all the balls, that's like having the same person at McDonald's run their front register, the draft, and French fries at the same time. They can't figure out why the food doesn't taste good when they're selling their house. And so it's the same exact scenario here. If you want to know more how that works, reach out to us. For the flip side, on the buyer side, guess what? 100 plus variables. If each one's handled correctly, it saves you money. You get the actual property you want. If anything's handled incorrectly, that agent's too busy, they don't actually know what they're doing, they don't negotiate the right way, it costs you your hard-earned money and you don't get the property that you want. And so if you do anything or take anything from this show, understand that the agent that you choose matters. You need someone with experience, someone with that investment that can invest on your behalf, and someone that can get the job done for you right the first time. If you want to know more how it works, reach out, call us 843-808-SOLD or BlakeSloan.com. Anytime. Take a quick break. Right back in a second. That should be a handy commercial, right? That should be handy, right? Yeah. Okay. Fucking my show up. Gotta get this right. Let's go.
So if you're in the market to buy or sell a home right now, every detail means dollars, and who you hire to negotiate your home, that really matters. Hey, Sean Hannity here, and as an active investor who invests in real estate all across the great country of ours, I want the best negotiator representing my interests.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Blake Sloan of Sloan Realty Group. They can help you navigate through multiple cash offers, and more importantly, he has turned complicated situations into five-star reviews. Now check out his rave reviews on Google. Talk to him yourself. If you are on trial with big money at stake, you would want a seasoned negotiator with thousands of victories. If they will take you on and you can afford them, right? Well, your home deserves the best representation. Know your options. See how much demand your home can command in this market right now and get the best representation that you deserve. Call Blake Sloan today at 808-SOLD. That's 808-SOLD. Or online at blakesloan.com. That's blakesloan.com.
Hi, I'm Barbara Morgan. I'm excited to connect with Blake Sloan, only real estate agent in Myrtle Beach that I recommend. You offer several options of home sales, and really takes away the stress.
That's right. For sellers that time crunch, you can agree to sell it by a certain date. They can ask their help on being ready.
That's great. And if the seller has a bit more time,
Use our food marketing plan and sell it for the highest price.
work with my friend Blake Sloan and get the home sold on your terms.
Welcome back to the Blake Sloan Real Estate Show. The market update. Got all kind of different stuff going on right now. The market. One thing we've been doing lately, keep you on your toes and kind of keep track of what's happening with the craziness of the market, especially this new shift or downturn, whatever you want to call it, or normalization, is tracking new properties under contract every 7 days. And so most people just use data and rearview mirror. We talk about that's what closed last month. And next week's show, we'll have the micro market data. We'll talk about what's happening in each zip code. But right now, looking at properties under contract every 7 day period, that's been really insightful for us ever since we started tracking it when COVID lockdown happened. But right now, the last 7 days, only 386 properties under contract for 140 million. That was actually up. Yesterday was only in 340s. But if you look at last week's show, I like to track it Friday, basically through to Friday of each week and just kind of look at it weekly. 407 properties under contract for 137 million. Week before that, 445 for 150 million. And if you go back just 24 weeks ago, it was 690 under contract for 215 million. At the peak of this year, we were really about 700 to 800 properties per week. And so we've seen significant declines, really about a 40% drop in terms of new properties under contract. And you can watch it every single week go down as rates would go up. And so I do think if you listen to the show every week, next week's show will see a much higher number because rates drop back down. But right now, 956 active listings, which is good. Last week, there's 944. If you go back to just 24 weeks ago, there's only 382 active. So big jump in terms of actual inventory out there. The good news, looking at properties at a high, we've been selling a lot of high-end properties lately. If you look at last week's show, there's only 7 properties over $1 million under contract. This week, 8 properties over $1 million, one of which was just $6.8 million, which is awesome. So big money moving in here right now. Still, even with the rates where they are. Last week's show, 59 properties over $500,000 under contract. This week, 57 properties over $500,000. So it's interesting to watch every week. You kind of see them stay the same in what's happening. But if you go back 24 weeks ago, there was 107 properties over 500,000. Now, right now, only 57. So it's important to know the data so you make good decisions based on that. Looking at the overall macro market, just for anyone that missed last week's show, sales last month down 26.8%. So this year we peaked out in March at 703 properties sold, closed. And right now, last month in October, 485 properties closed. And so significant, decline from the peak there. And that percentage is compared to the same month last year. And so in essence, we're down 26.8% from the same month last year. It was over 30, but as data has gotten put in a little bit late, that's something that really has bounced back a little bit. Here's the interesting numbers from last month. Prices up 12.1% from last the same month last year. But here's what's crazy. Month versus month was up. That was surprising to me to see it jump significantly. So right now, the median price, $360,000. Last month, it was $346,000. So that has to do with just a tightness of inventory, kind of what's happening. The properties that are getting priced right are still getting sold because there's still significant buyer demand compared to the amount of properties for sale, which we'll talk about that in a second. Average sale price right now also up 11.7%, but it jumped big time month versus month. We've been watching a month versus month trend go down since April. So April, it was 488, 186. It's gone down every month. September's at 418, 616, but then October, it jumped back up to 453, which is great. So that's one thing that's really good, a $30,000 jump there in terms of average sale price just last month, which is a great bounce overall. What's driving that is inventory. Inventory is still very, very low. It's at 2.4 months inventory. If you look at back to 2019, we'll go back to the last time there was 2.4 months. So last time there was 2.4 months was November 2020. But if you go all the way back to, let's say in 2019, in June of 2019, there was 5.6 months inventory. And so that's what's helping protect price. We hit an all-time low early this year in January at 0.9 months. So it is up 60% from where it was late last year. But we are seeing it in a seller's market still. There's not a buyer's market yet. Anything buyer's markets, anything 6 months or more of inventory, we're still very, very tight because a lot of people are just locked in at low interest rates. They're not selling. They're comfortable where they're at. But the good news is that's what's helping protect prices right now. And so there still is a lot of sellers can get a lot of money for their house and sell it pretty quickly, which is great news overall for them. That's one thing we're seeing. Showings per listing is down from the same time last year, down 39.4%. But we're still moving a lot of stuff. One thing interesting to look at, probably one of the most important numbers is pending listings, pending sales, that is. So pending sales down 40% from the same time last year. And that's just because really the past month we've seen prices of interest rates over 7%. And so if you look just last week's show, interest rates 7.30%, which is obviously very, very, very tough. And so we were scraping at one point 2 weeks ago. We hit a new record every single day of high interest rates. And so right now, good news is it dropped back down 6.62% right now for a 30-year fix. I've seen some people get quoted on Friday at 5.99, which is great. And so it's great news. You see a bunch of buyers jump back in the market, which is great. A 15-year fixed rate right now, 6%, which is great news there overall, down over a half a point at 0.56. Jumbo loan right now, 6.10%, which is awesome. That's why you're seeing a lot of high-end stuff move as well. 5-year adjustable rate mortgage, 6.12%. A 30-year FHA is 6.20%, and a 30-year VA, 6.25% overall, which is great. So great news there. A new record that's actually good overall. It just has to do with interest rates, and that's one thing that's really cool. The quote today really on the news says, record single-day drop in rates after inflation comes in cooler. So good news out there. If you're a home seller, take advantage of the timing here. It's coming into the market here. It's very, very good. Weather's still good. The holidays are a very, very emotional time for a lot of people. And guess what? The most emotional purchase someone makes is their home. So if you want to know more about getting the most for your home and you're thinking about selling, reach out, call me, 843-808-SOLD or BlakeSloan.com. Take a quick break, right back in a second with a hot buyer alert.
Investors and I both know exactly what to look for to find the agent with the best tools and marketing to get the highest sales price possible for a home.
Totally true, Clay. Here in Myrtle Beach, that agent is our friend Blake Sloan of Sloan Realty Group. If you need to sell a home and buy a new one, ask Blake about his guarantee.
Get this, Blake guarantees to sell your home at a price and deadline you agree to, or he'll buy it himself. And since you know when your current home will sell by and for how much, you can buy your next home without worrying about getting stuck with two mortgages.
There's simply no other agent in the market who has a guarantee that will line up against what Blake Sloan can offer you. So when you're looking to sell and buy, he is your guy. Read nearly 750 5-star reviews by Googling Sloan Realty Group. Give Blake a call today and start packing. That's Sloan Realty Group.
And tune in to Blake's shows Saturdays at 9 a.m. and Sundays at 3 a.m.
Welcome back to the Blake Sloan Real Estate Show. Hot buyer alert. My team and I are working with a ridiculous amount of home buyers looking for homes in the Myrtle Beach, Grand Strand area from $250,000 to $4.3 million. If you're thinking about selling, reach out, call us immediately, 843-808-SOLD. That's 843-808-SOLD. One of the most proud things we've been doing this show 12 plus years. I need to actually track it down, but we know over 12 years for sure because I saw it in my Facebook memories. But here's the deal. We put our money where our mouth is. A lot of agents promise you stuff. We talk about this all the time. My business model gives me a huge advantage. We outspend the average agent 100 to 1 from a marketing standpoint, literally 100 to 1 from a marketing standpoint. And so here's one thing we're proud of. Every week, I share our current list of active buyers. Dave used to read it on the show all the time. But here's the deal. Current count of home buyers who were signed up, actively searching on our website with username, password account, 70,057 active home buyers. Again, 70,057 home buyers. We actually were at 69,000 something last week. Right now, we crossed that 70,000 active home buyers. And here's the deal. You always ask the question, well, why should I call you versus anyone else? We're outspending the average agent 100 to 1. But on top of that, I'm spending money getting buyers before you ever pick up that phone. We had someone call off the show this week. Won't share his name, an agent licensed in Colombia, but listen to the show here, had a property here, had a list with an agent who didn't sell. And he called and said, look, I'm very frustrated with them, expire with them. I'm calling you because I know you spend tremendous amounts of money in advertising. Absolutely. Dang right we do, because here's the deal. My business model gives us a huge advantage. We have a team of buyer experts, over 35 people on the team. And so we have inside sales, outside sales, VIP concierge. We have people who are specialists. And so I can afford to spend my money to acquire leads from across the country, because worst case scenario, we're going to sell them something in the MLS. But best case scenario, excuse me, is we're going to sell your listing because we want to get both sides of that commission, because I'm in business to make money and I'm in business to help you get your property sold. And so that's why right now, buyers from all over. I have Josh Halton from Chicago, Illinois on our site, just registered not long ago, but he's already been on here, 22 visits. I got Patty from Harrisburg, North Carolina. I got Anthony Ozzo from Myrtle Beach. I got Linda from Newark, New Jersey. I got Valerie from Lorain, Ohio. I got Paul from Oneida, New York. Let's see some crazy places. I got all kind of Jacksonville, North Carolina, Clinton, Massachusetts, Pittsburgh, PA, Canopolis on it, Coropolis, PA. So the bottom line is we have them all over. Why? Because we spend tens and tens of thousands of dollars a month, every single month, driving traffic online, capturing buyers from around the world who are looking to buy a property like yours. And so during the last really few years, while a lot of agents have been stacking up, buying new cars and like that, I've been stacking up, preparing for this moment to make sure that we can double down just like we did in COVID, and we continue our spending for buyer spend, for continue our spending to get clients from across the globe. And that's how we're going to continue to dominate and get our clients results they want. And so if you're thinking about selling, reach out, call me. Do not make that mistake of being a horror story. If you have a friend or relative, the only thing I ask about doing the show is that, look, we just ask for, the only fee here is like, look, reach out. Anybody you talk to that says they're thinking about selling, they're at dinner talking about a coworker, say, look, you got to call my buddy Blake. Save me in your phone. It's 843-808-SOLD. We're here to help serve, because we want to make sure that we can match up one of our buyers to your property and get it sold faster and for more money with our proven repeatable system. So really quick, 2 quick success stories, just like sharing that every week. So we're super proud of it. DeWitt owned a large tract of land in Loris. Recently decided it's time to sell at the top of the market to cash in maximum equity. Thankfully, DeWitt heard about us on this radio station, decided to give us a call. We came in, met with DeWitt, shared with him exactly how we have hundreds of buyers looking for properties just like his, how we get top dollar for their property, which is unique because it's a large tract of land. So here's the cool part. We actually told him how we can get more money he thought possible. I designed a custom marketing plan, launched our global marketing blitz, our drone photography, drove massive traffic. Within a couple weeks, had tremendous interest in the property, got a full price offer just in a couple weeks. Also, Brandon and Deborah purchased home in Carolina Forest in this spring. So early this spring this year. Brandon recently found out he's getting a job promotion, but going to have to take him out of the area. They need to sell, but their concern was getting top dollar for their property since they just purchased a few months ago. Brandon and Deborah wanted to make sure they got the right realtor to get the job. They did a bunch of research, and they obviously want to maximum equity. They came across us on Google and our 775-star reviews. We met with Brandon and Deborah, shared them our guaranteed sold system, how we get their property sold fast and within the time frame they needed in order for Brandon to get his accept his job promotion. I designed a custom plan, launched a gold marketing blitz, professional photos, the virtual reality walkthrough. Within a couple weeks, received an offer at their home right near asking price, which allowed Brandon to accept his job promotion for that perfect transition. So don't make a mistake, right? Call Blake, reach out, call us, 843-808-SOLD, or always go to blakesloan.com. Really quick, got about 4 or 5 minutes left, I think 4 minutes. Horror story. I see this is the second instance I've had just in a matter of a month with the same exact investor who advertises here that we buy houses, right? Here's the deal. Be very, very careful. Those people aren't licensed. They tell you stuff. They have no real guidance what they have to do, and they're destroying people's equity. We had a person who listed with us for $324,000. We went to schedule photos. They were having some marital issues. They said they want to put on pause. No problem. Went kind of dark on us, and all of a sudden called us back recently and said, hey, we made this mistake. We actually went under contract this investor. It fell through, got to the close date. He did not close. We're like, man, okay. We looked at it, said, can we see what the paperwork was? It's past the closing date. They accepted an offer $120,000 below what we were going to list and sell for. And so I was just so confused now. But they said, we wanted the money quickly. We said, man, we could have had that sold for you instantly, right? Within a couple of days, and had $120,000 more dollars in your pocket. And here's the crazy part. Looked at the contract. It's a one-sided contract that allowed him to get back out of the contract for any reason up until the closing date. So he was no obligation, only $500 in earnest money, which he can still get back at any point during that process up until the day of closing, which is how they use that to negotiate against you. Because at that point, you bought a new home or you rented somewhere else, and now you have no leverage. And they say, hey, just like he did to our lady who had cancer, who was dying of lung cancer, the day of closing went back to her and said, hey, we're not going to buy your house unless you drop it $50,000, because he knew she had no choice. And thankfully, in that scenario, the previous example, she said, no, forget you, and called us. Here's the deal, right? He advised her not to have her own closing attorney. They would draw the deed up for her. And that's how they say you don't pay closing costs. So that's because you have no representation, which is very, very, very risky in that scenario, right? Thankfully, she came back with that to us. We had it able to get it sold within a matter of hours. And then the investor threatened to sue her because he was still trying to buy the house. And here's what these investors do. Not necessarily this one, but almost all those we buy houses, they aren't the end user. They're just out there advertising that they'll buy houses. And what they do is they beat you down. It's called wholesaling. They would beat you down on price. Let's say it's worth $300,000. They tell you how bad your house is, how horrible it is. Doesn't really matter because they're not licensed, so they can tell you there's mold, all kinds of stuff. Now all of a sudden you're really scared. You accept an offer for $250,000. Well, they can never close on the property $250,000 cash, even though the contract says it, because they want to assign that to someone else. And now they try to find someone to buy it at a discount at $270,000. They make $20,000. You actually lose $30,000 of your equity, but you think you were smart because you sold it quickly. Do not make that mistake. This is happening over and over and over. And these are vultures who are taking your hard-earned equity and stealing it. And so if you have anybody out there as a friend or relative, right, that may be in the scenario, say, look, call somebody who's licensed, who's good at what they do, because this is the type of thing you see people taking equity from people over and over and over again. So do me a favor, right? If you have any interest in learning more, you can always go to BlakeSloan.com. Just Google Blake Sloan Real Estate. But anyone you come across, friend, relative, do not let them make a similar mistake, or go with an agent who costs you $30,000, $40,000 because they don't know what they're doing. Reach out to an expert. Reach out to us, 843-808-SOLD.com, or anybody you come across. Say, look, you got to call my buddy Blake. He's going to help get you the most amount of money. We do it every single week. So we'll be here back next week. Any questions you have, reach out to me. Make sure we talk about it in the show, and we'll talk to you soon.